it must be Friday. And that must mean it's time for some Cosmotronic. But before we do too much more, should we check if our sound is working nicely? And that must mean it's time.
Yeah, do let me know if I actually sound okay or if I'm too loud, too soft. I got a new mixer. So me trying to do multiple things with something without too much of a test is kind of scary.
Indeed. So we're going to pause here and say hello to the channel. I think we might see we may have just seen a chua in the channel. Does anyone have a shotgun?
Ha!
Hello, folks. Can you hear us? Do we sound okay?
Do we sound okay?
And are we at the same volume level?
Lol. Well, apparently they hear us because they are kind of killing it with fire and other things like that. So I'm hoping they hear it. Can you hear me? Do I sound too loud? Okay, so now the stream's catching up with us. Yay! Maybe if I just make
Okay, folks, well,
there we go.
Perhaps if you let people know we're here, we're alive, or at least we're half alive, and sound is nothing without video, but what's this chua doing in the channel? That shouldn't be there. That's not allowed.
No, it's not. I'm surprised you got away, though. That was really lucky on your part.
It was kind of the way that it took it through, all the wrong airports on the way back. But let me push a button. And there's a button, and there should be no more music. You should indeed be looking at a couple of faces. This one, currently fueled by coffee, picked up on the way back from the airport. Sorry that we're running a little late, folks. It's going to be quite an interesting show. I have been out the country, but I'm now back in it. But hey, thankfully there's someone else here that's had their finger on the pulse all week and is much more informed. Say hello to Pseudo.
Hello, everybody. I am informed, and instead of coffee, I'm being taken care of by cherry alcohol.
I have no wish to have cherry alcohol. Let me just make that point. However,
it's
yes,
Greek.
Alcohol.
I'm
would
probably
be good.
pronouncing that wrong, but it's Greek.
So,
it's a Friday night.
Thank you, the dist. In fact, I think I just did that just before you said as much. In fact, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it again. It's not quite in the right place, is it? There we go. That might help. So this show is called Mad Drops, and it's called Mad Drops because, well, I'm led to believe, whilst on my European adventures, that Mad Drops have been happening. So, Pseudo, something's been whispering in my ear about a little bit of a stream. Fill us in.
Yes, as a matter of fact, it was kind of comical. I'm only going to say this once. I'm never going to repeat it again. So if you're wanting to make GIFs, video recordings, or anything else like that, this is your time to do so, because I am not saying it again. However, we were greeted this past week with a live stream that had our Scooter, and it also had Daddy Stephen Frost. And they were playing the game. Now, the professional, Daddy, had quite a bit of fun, and it was actually an informative thing, and they mentioned a few things and showed some things, which was kind of nice. It's left me with quite a few questions, even though I've played the game before. Now I've had a chance to see more, because when you have a limited time with a beta and a show floor or something like that, you actually don't get a chance to open up all the panels and go, what's this, what's this, what's this? So it's left me with more questions than it has given me answers, I guess you could say. But it was exciting, and they're planning on doing it more frequently. During the show, they specifically said they'd be back in 2 weeks, and they did the show 6 days ago. So we're looking at probably about a week and a day or so before they come out again. And the show itself, they've promised to bring everything. And I mean, they've promised to bring everything. Now, what this is, it's a ramp-up for release in spring of 2014, as stated in Wildstar Wednesday. So
Let's find out, Pseudo, first off. Other than some people like me that have been far too much in the dark this week, who in the channel has seen the stream?
Has anybody watched this glorious stream of doom?
Meanwhile, I'm going to investigate this wonderful bag of Danish treats that includes ammonia licorice, 17 other sorts of licorice, and lots of other things. I have to say, the food in Denmark is fantastic, and that includes all of the different raw herring dishes. Do you not
Sorry.
approve? I could talk at length about the different types of raw herring.
It's been lovely knowing you guys. I will see you guys next week. Oh, God.
Apparently raw herring is not a hit over here. Who'd have known? So, people seem to have seen the stream in the channel. There's been a bit of news this week. Let's have the headlines. Now, being highly organised, Pseudo, you have some notes, I believe, you've taken from the stream. So why don't you walk us through...
I have. But before I go into that, I want to point out the fact that this WildStar Wednesday, they did mention that in the next upcoming weeks, they're going to be re-releasing the classes because there's been changes. And introducing the last two classes after they've reintroduced the other classes. So in the next 6 weeks, we're going to start seeing dev speak videos all about the specific classes, which is nice,
awesome.
Good. And at least now we have sort of a ticking time bomb as to when we're going to find out what the last two classes are. So that's brilliant. Also, remember, #winter beta is coming.
I'm sure there's many people frantically going like this. And that is, of course, the sound of someone spamming their F5 key.
Actually, it cracks me up because for Halloween, Scooter suggested that he should show up as a beta key, and then other people were like, but then nobody would see you. And he's like, that's a good point. So I just said, you should just go as an F5 key. You get pressed all the time. But yeah.
Very true. So what are the headlines, Pseudo? What's happened in this stream? And for people that haven't seen it, where can they see it?
Well, the stream itself is, they say they were going to put it on YouTube, but I actually didn't see it on YouTube. So what I did is I grabbed their Twitch stream, and I shall paste it into the chat for everybody to go watch after the show, if you haven't actually seen it yet. But yes, so we had the Daddy Professional Steven and Scooter. Now, one of the first things they started talking about in particular was combat, because Scooter was playing, and he was playing a stalker. And he was playing a stalker and, you know, doing stuns and things like that and stealthing. Although, in his words, he forgets to stealth. He doesn't really play a stealthy character. So it was kind of funny watching Frost kind of rip him for not stealthing soon enough. Which is interesting to me because it kind of hints that even though you're in combat, you can still stealth.
Okay,
possibly.
So we're not maybe... if I talk about stealth, you know, my big assumption, and this would be akin to, say, a rogue in WoW, is I'm stealthed, therefore I hit something, and therefore I get extra damage, or something of that nature. Was there any evidence of that?
There was. In fact, I spent a lot of time watching the stream and pausing it, just like they said somebody would when they brought up and hovered over their abilities and things like that. And there is a particular ability, the Tactical Strike, which, as it says, it has a cost of, you know, some suit power, has a range, it's instant, does damage, but it has two other classifying things about it. And hello, Gazzy. Lovely to see you.
No lurking. I'm sure we can rig you up an audio connection for the Gazimoff. You might be wondering why we're short of a couple of people still. All will soon.
Oh, yes, we should probably mention that.
Gazimoff is still in Welsh Wales, I do believe, or something of that nature. And Kai is, well, I don't know where Kai is. I keep looking for flying broomsticks and things of that nature, but no, nothing. No, Kai will be with us next week, and I'm going to get shot for saying that.
Yes, yes, you are. And I will help her aim. However, trying to hit you will be a little difficult because you do get lost. Oh, but, oh, that reminds me, something awesome was introduced, which is going to save you specifically in-game.
Okay.
And I was really happy about it, but I'll get to that in a moment. But anyway, going back to Tactical Strike, they have two extra parts to the ability. One that increases the damage by 165% if you are stealthed or behind the target, not both. If you happen to be stealth and behind the target, that's 200%.
Okay,
now,
so
that is interesting to me because we have conditional applications applied based on your positioning, which...
and the first thing it says straight away is it's introducing, okay, at a simple level, layers of complexity in that, well, do it one way, you get this, but do it better. Get position, get stealth, execute all these things together, get more damage. And that would seem to fit into the rogue mindset.
It definitely does. I mean, it seems to me as if they're not just going to say throw abilities at you and say congratulations, here are your abilities. They're kind of offering hints on how to play the different classes based on what they've actually put in for the benefits of actually playing your class like you should play your class. However, what I found interesting, like I said, was the fact that he was, Skritter, while he was playing the Stalker, he made his way over to some Megatech battle bots, which were technically called the Brobots by the end of that conversation. Yay, Stephen Frost. Naughty, naughty. But anyway, he made his way over, and even though he was already noticed, which I would think in a typical MMO means you are in combat, he's still stealth. Which means that if you happen to, say, be in, we'll say, a dungeon or something like that, and you're playing a Stalker, you can actually get the benefit of that tactical strike, because that means at certain times you can go back into stealth and get that bonus. You know, that seems to be like how it works, but honestly, it didn't seem to be enough for me to know for certain. I mean, it's
so
it's left some questions in my brain.
We're suggesting then that a stealthed character had a mob react to them, but that didn't break stealth?
No. He had a mob see him, and then he stealthed, and the mob just kept coming after him. And Frost specifically said, you stealthed too late. Now, that means to me that there might be something else going on there with that stealth ability than we know for sure. For example, like, maybe there's a cooldown for when you can go into stealth when you're in combat or something. I don't know.
Do the channel have any ideas as to the mechanic? I see that...
Well, Jesper says that I heard that stealth is allowed in combat, but that in PvP, for example, other players will still see you. So the same for mobs. Now, this means, obviously, I guess there's sort of, when it comes to the stealth mechanic, a sort of difference between combat stealth and non-combat stealth. If you are non-combat stealth, obviously you're sneaky, 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 tippy toes, you know, doing the Scooby-Doo little dance, one of the things they mentioned during the stream. But at the same time, if you are in combat, it doesn't mean you're denied your extra damage because you cannot stealth, which is, you know, something that rogues had problems with in WoW, and, you know, and other things like that. You know, you wanted to be stealth to get that opening shot, but after that, you pretty much were done with being stealth. Unless you decided to blow Vanish every 5 minutes, which, by the way, I think the cooldown's changed and it's used for something completely different now. But anyway.
That does actually raise an interesting thing with the design of that particular class, in that if stealth is always going to be available, then the burst damage can be factored into the overall damage output over time of the character in a much more meaningful way. Because if you only get to stealth once, then that burst, it could be whatever it is, but the non-stealthed damage needs to still be enough to keep up with other DPS classes. Therefore, what would tend to happen is the stealthed damage wouldn't be massively high, because it would then go very out of kilter in terms of, you know, big bursts. So if you can go into stealth more often, then I might logically intuit that you need to do it more often, and it's part of the overall DPS ability of the class, and possibly easier to balance because it'll be used more frequently.
Well, I would think that because of the fact that you are stuck with a LAS, your limited action set, by denying people, or in this particular case, the Stalker, their ultimate class damage, which is if you are stealth and behind a target, at least for tactical strike, you get this bonus. By denying them that, I think you're fundamentally denying them the ability to really play their class extremely well, or giving them a chance, and that kind of would blow. So to me, it seems as if their DPS cycle is going to require them to consider, when is the best time for me to pull out this stealth? When is the best time for me to implement this damage burst and actually put it in? Because if you want to look at, say, wow, you had a whole bunch of abilities, and when you stealth, you got a brand new bar. You don't in this. When you stealth, you still have your limited action set. End of story. It doesn't change.
And I would guess that then to actually stealth is an ability on your LAS.
It is.
So
it is your class ability.
You're working with less options. So therefore that has to, I suggest, have some utility that affects more than one thing. Just logic.
I would think so.
Okay.
I would think so, based on that.
So we've seen a little bit of a bit more information on the stream that showed us some rogue bits and pieces, or Stalker, rogue archetype.
Stalker.
What else have we actually seen? Any other tidbits from other classes?
Yes, we saw a spell slinger, a more desh spell slinger that had
Okay.
awesome tech dreads, might I add. Like, awesome. It was so cool. He was just standing there, and the dreads in the background were just swaying back and forth. And it was just like, woo!
Was
And
there
then they actually...
reggae music playing at this point?
No, we were listening to the beautiful tones of, you know, the curtain actors' musical pieces and scores. So I was content with that. But we did actually see a spell slinger. Didn't spend as much time hovering over the abilities in that particular case.
Okay.
Just talked about having the more abilities because he was level 35 at the time. And he was showing, you know, he was trying to show everything. So it wasn't like he was trying to follow a proper cycle. But he did mention something that kind of made my brain twerk a little bit. Now I'm wondering if it's because of the fact that there are so many things coming out, but they specifically said at the start of their stream that they were not going to be releasing any new information.
Okay.
Now, they were talking about the type of armor that spellslingers wear. And the quote pretty much came from Frost's mouth along the lines of, and let me get the quotages, that the spellslinger doesn't have as heavy an armor as the warrior or stalker, or I mean engineer. Now, come on, we're a community that speculates on absolutely everything. We've been speculating forever on these last two classes. Doesn't necessarily mean that this class is called an engineer, but we may have just been dropped an archetype, which we kind of knew, but we kind of didn't because it's kind of a rumor, hasn't been confirmed. It's still slightly redacted. But in my particular case, I kind of just went, wait, did he just say engineer? I actually watched it 3 times.
Okay.
He did.
but no pictures.
Yeah, excited
of
about that.
Engineers.
No pictures. It was interesting. I think they were the only ones on the server playing, and they had NPCs on there, and they were talking about how the NPCs kind of make Scooter think he's actually running around with other people because they'll run somewhere, stop, spin and look around, and then run in another direction, kind of like we do as players. So it was kind of interesting to see that.
And the channel telling me it's called a redactioneer, yes.
That almost sounds like you need an auctioneer, but yeah.
Okay, so we've seen a little bit more detail in 2 classes in combat. I'll be sure to be watching that post-show.
Oh, yeah, especially since it's a spell slinger, and I know that's something that really appeals to you.
Yes, it does. I mean, if I do this, if I actually can tilt it the right way. Oh, look, what's that? In the background.
It's a spell slinger.
Yes, that would be a spell slinger. So, anything new to add in on top of that on combat? Anyone in the channel got any combat comments?
Oh, let's see. There's just so many things that were just gone through. Look kind of cool. Oh, yeah, and in particular, we all know about telegraphs, which is kind of cool. However, they did specifically state that if you actually can get off a stun or an interrupt on a telegraph, you do bonus damage to whatever you are fighting.
Okay, so to define on a telegraph.
Okay, so you know how you have a telegraph, and if you are going to, say, do a charge spell, a telegraph will appear, or you'll see a telegraph from a mob coming at you. That usually means that they're prepping to do something that requires you to move out of it or something. Telegraphs don't get put down if they're instantaneous. That's kind of pointless. However, if you see a telegraph being put down and you actually interrupt it, was the term that they use, not necessarily stun, but you interrupt it, their health bar turns purple and you do bonus damage to them. Now, this to me struck me as really interesting because in the very first episode of Cosmotronic, we were talking about the interrupt armor that was seen on a raid boss. Now, what this means to me is there are going to be fights where you're going to take your 25 raid people, you're going to get those interrupts in, apply the last interrupt to do the interrupt what you want it to do, and you might actually get bonus damage to them, which might be part of the fight.
25?
Just a wild guess. Well, we had said 25 during the raid, or when we were talking about it in the first episode, getting 25 of your raid members to do that, the interrupt armor, so that you could actually apply an interrupt.
I'm with you, yep. I prefer the number 40 for raiding.
Well, yes, but we had just mentioned the fact that the boss in that particular vine had 25 interrupt armor.
Absolutely. Okay, so I guess what we're talking about here then is, I'm thinking of it as kind of like interrupting an animation, interrupting a cast bar, landing that hit at the critical moment while the enemy is doing something. And from what you're saying, we get a lovely purple bar and bonus damage. Was anything mentioned of what the bonus damage is? Is it a flat multiplier? Does it differ by spell? Was anything revealed there?
They mentioned a tiny, tiny bit about it, but it seemed almost as if there was more to it than they were actually letting on. Because the way that Scooter had said it was, yeah, when you stun this at the time that it's doing the interrupt, or you interrupt their particular telegraph, and you get this bonus damage, and we think it's something like 165% damage instead of just 100 damage. And he goes, I think, but I'm not too sure. And Frost never exactly verified. So
Okay.
I will point out though. Gazzy, I laughed horribly. I was crying when they mentioned telegraphs in raids and disco balls because I immediately thought of you and your assertion that there might be disco balls and that you were glad that that wasn't going to be the case. Now, this in particular, for anyone watching who was completely unaware of it, is the fact that when you do a telegraph, if you've got 40 people in a raid doing a telegraph all at the same time, you've got the boss's telegraphs coming in, you've got the healer's telegraphs coming in, you've got other things. That's Hello Disco Central. And they actually use the term disco, which made me think of you, Gazzy.
So we're now going to get a big silver mirror ball coming down from the sky somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. And everyone's going to break out into the synchronized swim dance in a raid. You just know it's coming.
Okay, so what else have we managed to glean from the stream?
I can answer Nini Chu's question, actually. Nini Chu is asking, can I turn telegraphs and raids with all different colors? They've actually talked about customizing the telegraphs so that you have an idea. Now, in a raid environment, when you're in a group type of a thing, like in a dungeon, the only telegraphs you'll see are yours, the bosses, and things that are beneficial to you. So, like your healer's telegraphs or something. And they'll all be colored differently. Now, Scooter had mentioned the fact that they have considered allowing people to modify the telegraphs. However, it didn't sound definite. It sounded almost as if this is something they've considered. They're looking at possibly doing it, but it might not come out with the release. It might be something a little bit later. So they haven't just specifically said, yes, this is what's going to be there. But they have mentioned it. They have discussed it. But again, it just didn't sound like they had finalized on it and put it into the build. So we'll see.
Okay. So what are the other headline topics?
Okay, let us see. Well, considering the fact that we are MMO buff and considering the fact that we are the kind of people who like to learn more than just, hey, this is a game, but we also like to learn about the development disciples.
Carbine, you're now employing development disciples.
Yes,
are they much improved standard programmers?
I will state, though, it made my heart pitter-patter as someone who's involved in IT, etc., to actually hear Frost mention Kanban boards and agile development. I just want to get that out there now because it made my heart pitter-patter, and I'm like, oh, Kanban! I know all about that, yay! And I was just, like, excited and stuff. Sorry. It's the development girl in me.
Well, while you're considering the development disciples, I opened a new and shiny box today. And it had MMOBuff on the front. And
oh, did it?
It did. And some of you may have seen these before. To hold one up this way. This is an MMOBuff business card. It follows the purple theming. I'm sure that won't come through. There we go. It follows the purple theming of the channel and the first show. But of course, we now have some new shows. Cosmotronic being one. And Cosmotronic is a delightful blue colour, I guess. I was trying to think of a more descriptive word for the blue. Could someone name
Nexian
our blue, please, in the channel?
Nexian blue.
We now have these. Look.
And now everyone knows your phone number.
Shiny.
If you notice, there's colors there that we haven't even put into a show yet. Not going to reveal anything on that.
And yes, now christened... that way. Nexian Blue. It made me smile. I just thought I'd share those.
Oh, absolutely. I especially like the orange one for top drawer.
Yes.
Top draw. I keep calling it drawer. I don't mean to, but I think it's because of my accent and the fact that I'm weird. Revealing
You'll
secrets.
have to
Yes,
watch
Rainbow
this
MMO
space,
buff.
Flannan. Watch this space. In a couple of weeks. So,
Right.
The
So
stream ran for an hour, I believe, and I'm sure they didn't spend an hour talking about combat and agile development.
no, they didn't. In fact, the agile development in Kanban was kind of a last thought in the very end. And I'm sorry, but I would have really actually wanted to hear more about that. But that's me. But anyway, they did talk about something which I found rather nice. In a game recently that I've been playing, I get very frustrated because of all the phasing that occurs, and you'll get your friends knocked off mounts that you share with them, and some of the other stuff that occurs as well. They have discussed in more detail the thing that they call for their phasing view phasing. Now,
Okay.
what this means is, let's say that you and I are both running around doing quests, okay? And we're in a group together.
Yep.
But let's say that I finish my quests and I keep going ahead because you found yourself lost and on the other end of the map, and I didn't have a mount big enough to carry the two of us.
Why
Let's
me
just
lost?
say
This could
happened.
be you lost, and I could know exactly where I'm going.
Mainly because I have yet to find that situation actually occur. So we're just going with the average thing. So what ends up happening is, let's say that, okay, we'll make it nicer. You're busy working on, one of your path quests, and you're just like, you go ahead and turn it in, I'll be with you shortly. Now, let's say that at the end when I turn in my quest, a cinematic occurs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can escape out of the cinematic and just keep going if I wanted to. Or I could watch it because, to quote them, their cinematics are badass. So, it's up to me on how I want to do it. Now, all of the effects that I have had from that quest on the environment show up for me. If I have fixed this, as they described in there, they were trying to get rid of the shield that had encased the area so that other Dominion couldn't zone in or couldn't get in. And our job was to destroy the shield generators. So he went through, he destroyed the shield generators, little cinematic happened, you see it kind of blow up in smoke, and the shield that they put up is gone. Now, if you had not done the quest, but I turned it in, it shows that way for me. It only shows the phasing per client, per player. So this means that if you come running over, you will not see the changes. I will. However, we can still see each other.
Could that lead to confusion? We're in a group together. Just go poke that big unicorn statue over there. Oh, wait, I don't see a unicorn statue. I wonder what they're going to do when in a group, two people are actually seeing something different. Because obviously that's one thing.
It doesn't seem like it's like you would, like, for example, we'll say the Wrathgate. There was a huge, huge phase that happened at Wrathgate in World of Warcraft. When you showed up, you were either witnessing a battle or you were witnessing the pure aftermath of the battle, and that was very drastic. In this case, a radar station got blown up and a shield disappeared from the sky. That's it.
Okay.
It was not big enough or dramatic enough to be harsh that forced everybody to phase.
Yeah.
So it's more like you're impacting these tiny little parts of the world, and you literally do feel as if what you have done actually impacts. You're not just doing a quest to get the gold. You're actually impacting the world around you. Now, they did talk about the fact that, let's say that, I happen to be level 50 and you're level 15 still. Not like that would happen. But let's just say that occurs. And I come back to help you. I can actually mentor and come down to your level.
Okay.
So I don't steal your XP or anything else like that, yet I still get rewarded for it. Now, they've talked about this before, but they did specifically state it, and it is worth mentioning. But in my opinion, going back to the view phasing, that to me is rather nice, because it means that if you have done quests in one part of the world, you actually see the impact you had on that part of the world. Whereas if you go to, say, the starter zone of another area that you didn't actually start in, sort of like, I don't know if they're going to have multiple start zones or what have you. It kind of sounds like they will, sort of, but we'll see. But if you go to another area, you haven't had an impact on that yet. So you see the devastation, or you see the challenges, or the crazy things that are going on.
Yep.
It just seemed nice to me that these things, you're not like waiting for that phase cannon to respawn, and it doesn't look like you've done anything.
Yeah, now I have to say that sometimes in WoW, the phasing works really well. Sometimes in WoW, you've disappeared. What's just happened? I don't know from what you've just imparted to me whether view phasing that does a per client phase, I guess, how that will work in a group setting.
Well, as I said, I do believe that, from based on what they said, if I've completed the quest and you haven't, I will see that the radar dish has been destroyed. You won't. the radar station is still going to be operational for you.
We shall have to wait and see what impact these
It was
things
just
have.
a little satellite dish that had smoke coming up. So it's not like, you know, the entire area got blanketed with, you know, some vitality green goo, and all of a sudden that changes everything and the mobs completely change. That's not what's occurring. It's just these little bits and pieces. What they said in specific was the fact that they are trying to limit full phasing as much as possible, which means there is full phasing somewhere. So, but what they try to do is limit it, which I agree with. Nothing worse than trying to help a friend and not being able to because you've completed a quest.
Okay, so we've touched on combat. We've touched on some dev stuff. We've talked about, therefore, something that mechanically is interesting. Phasing can be per client, and you can both be in the same place, see each other, and see different, I guess, environmental effects.
Sky effects and things like that, yes.
Next topic. What was next on the list?
Oh my goodness. Well, they talked about paths, which we've seen before.
Yeah. Anything? What was new?
You actually got a chance to see one of the path abilities, because he leveled up in pathing, and they actually sort of showed how it worked. It wasn't just I'm an explorer, etc. It gave him an idea of where he needs to go for his particular path. And I say him, I mean Scooter, because we're talking him playing the little low-level one. And I will get to the warrior one because obviously the professional has to play warrior, and he did actually use a flamethrower and burn things with fire. But anyway,
so elaborate on that path ability that you saw.
The path ability itself was, it was in the explorer's speed ability that grants 20% run speed for 15 seconds to themselves and all nearby allies. Now that made me happy to realize my skills help you. The reset timer on that one, I don't remember. That was the one I didn't actually fully write down because I just went, all people? Woohoo, that's all I need to know.
let's find out in Channel Land if anyone saw that reset timer. The fact it runs for 15 seconds, there has to be one. Depending on the cooldown of it. Is this a movement ability? Is this an finagle flacka button for in the middle of a fight?
It's run speed only.
Okay. So it's run speed only, meaning it won't function in combat or running in combat?
Oh no. They didn't specifically state cannot use in combat. It just said it just boosts your run speed. Let's say that you're in Storm Talon and you've got that boss that's there that has all the weird hurricane stuff going around. There's nothing to stop you from using it, but I would really warn your teammates if you're going to do something like that. I have witnessed crazy things because someone was running and then they hit sort of like this little bubble from the priest or a little feather or something, and they didn't stop, and then they just went over a cliff and died. Not mentioning any names that occurred to, and no, it was not my fault. It was somebody else in Guild's fault. Just going to say. But
the fact I'm being told by the channel it's a 2 to 3 minute reset. If that's the case, it means it can be looked at as a mechanic that can be used against a dungeon boss in a given fight. It doesn't seem to lend itself so much to a travel option of its 15 seconds. It looks more to be a tactical choice mid-combat.
And if you want to look at it from that perspective, absolutely. But, you're looking at the explorers getting 2 speed boosts. They've got this explorer speed boost, which benefits everybody, but then they've got sprint.
Yep.
Which means they can balance that out whenever they want. Now, they did have a radius on the speed itself buff. So, you apply it, and there was a radius on the actual thing, and I didn't write it down. I feel really silly for not doing so. Yes, Flannan, I may have actually paid somebody to ensure that Mizpah's character died. It leads me to believe that, if I look back, and I look back at the gigantic 40-man raids of the yesteryears, the areas where you were fighting were massive. Yep. Giant rooms so that you could get everybody in, so that you could have specific positioning, so that you could organize things.
I'm wondering, surely.
Well, see, I don't know. I think it would be kind of funny if you actually had, and this is This is wishful thinking on my part, just so that you know, and if any developers are listening, do keep in mind that I really enjoy kind of things like this, and maybe some other people do too. I would think it would be rather interesting if a dungeon was actually a puzzle box that required you to periodically smush together to one form, so you just have everybody sitting on top of each other. Like you had to for, I can't remember which fight it was, but everyone had to stand and collapse on one person, or else crazy weird things happen. And, you know, that'd be kind of cool.
Meteors I can think of in lots of raid mechanics, so you have to
Meteors
to
is
split
one of them.
the damage between everybody.
Absolutely. But I also like the concept of there being so much space that you have so much to play with. And I like the fact that the more space you have, the more environmental BS you got to put up with. Bring it on. Because if you have an entire room, bring it.
Okay, so we've seen a group speed boost that seems to be tactical and situational on the Explorer.
It says party, not raid, so I'm curious. Well, no, it says all nearby allies, so... Actually, I wonder if you have to be grouped to get a bonus on that, or if it's just anybody who happens to be nearby. You go running by, use the boost, and then, like, everybody gets it.
Were people grouped in the video?
No, like I said, they were literally playing one character, and they were the only ones there.
Right, so we didn't get to see how that works. Okay.
No, I'm jealous. I still want to see it.
So next thing, what else do we have from the stream?
From the path side of things, let's move over to the soldiers. We did learn that Frost is not as good a player as he likes to, you know, toot he is. I have to give props to Scooter before I say this, because it's sort of the same thing as what they were doing. There were orbital strikes that were coming down where Scooter was, and there were all the scrabs there, and he actually managed to get an orbital strike, more or less those telegraphs that move around, and when they find something, they actually start up, and then, you know, orbiting missiles come from above. He actually got a scrab inside to stand still, and it landed. The orbital strike landed right as it went to telegraph, interrupting the telegraph. So, you know, Scooter, mad props, man, seriously. However, Frost had a quest from the soldier that was sort of similar. He was supposed to put down a beacon, pull mobs into it, and when the mobs got into it, it would, you know, light up, and then he had to try and keep them in there without himself being inside this radius and this telegraph, and have this orbital strike hit him. He failed the first time.
Okay.
So Frost, not quite as good as Scooter. But, yeah. So the soldier paths, you get to play with lots of things, like experimental weapons, etc. And they showed a bit of that, which was kind of cool.
So, bit of soldier, bit more explorer, teasers as to the weapons. What else? What else have we got there?
Now see, this is interesting to me. As I scroll through all of my stuff, a couple of things became clear to me, because I am very much so not just about what are the mechanics, etc. I want to see what's happening and what's going to come about from things, or how the UI actually helps you. And Frost got himself into a little bit of a mess while he was playing and almost died. He was able to use several of the abilities from the Spellslinger to get out safe. Now, I don't know how many times anyone in a game has run away trying to tether that mob that if they'd hit him one more time, they would end up dead. And yet you don't really know unless you have your camera facing the other way and you see it stop and then run back.
Yep.
In the UI itself, it actually just said lost interest. And just this little text that showed up just on the, I think it was sort of like the legs of the character, that let you know that those mobs that were coming at you had lost interest in you. Now, I don't know what this specifically means. You no longer are the number one threat.
Yeah.
But it does kind of give you a quick visual aid to know that mob is no longer interested in me. I can stop.
It shows up on the legs of the mob?
No, on your character.
Okay.
When you're running away, so you have your character, this is my character, it's a hand, I don't know, but my character in the center of the screen, and as my character is running away, it shows up right about here, and it just says lost interest.
Kind of like
and it's in this nice little blue text.
Kind of like
floating
a WoW
combat.
scrolling tooltip? Yeah.
Sort of like
Combat
that, except it's
text
actually a
whatever
nice
the add-on's
color.
called.
Yeah. Mixed
Okay.
scrolling combat text, but yeah. And it does sound a little bit like a reset, which is kind of nice because it does mean those are those moments where you can stop and go, bandage, 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 or whatever. But he did end up almost dying because he kept, every time he went to do a move, he aggroed another mob. Now, I have told people before who have not played the game that you cannot take for granted anything in this game when it comes to combat, especially because it's not your typical kind of combat, because you have to dodge, you need to jump, you need to reposition. And if you are not careful, the next place that you reposition to will aggro the next group of mobs. And you will run around having 20 mobs chasing you because you were so busy bouncing everywhere.
That sounds bad for your health.
It is bad for your health, which is why Frosty ran away.
And Stout is saying that it was 10 levels higher than the zone as well. Does that give us anything interesting with regards to difficulty to speculate on?
I would think so. I didn't quite catch the natures or the levels of the mobs. I was laughing too hard. And it was one of those, lol, 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 lol. And yes, they were running the old build. It was noticeable that they were running the old build because in a previous WildStar Wednesday, they said that they had modified the quest bar so that it's not kill X, collect X, destroy Y. In this particular case, it is. So they are showing a previous old build. But that's okay. The other thing that they pointed out was that, going back to the paths, sorry, my brain's all over the place because there were so many things interlocking together. But another thing with the paths is the settlers use what's known as a hot-cold system.
Okay.
Hot, 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 cold, cold, cold. To let you know if you're getting, or explorers, not settlers. I meant to say explorers.
So it's a distance thing, like hide and seek.
Yeah, exactly. Now to bring up the thing that is going to be saving your butt, Mizpah, inside this MMO. And I don't mean to whack that, but there you go. Now, one of the things that has occurred in a lot of games is when you have a quest, they'll tell you where it is on your map, where it is you need to go, and they'll give you the circle radius telling you this is where the mobs are that you need to kill, or this is where the things that you need to collect. They do that. However, in my opinion, I kind of see it slightly as cheating a little bit. But because of the fact we're in sci-fi, because of the fact that we're in a world where technology exists, three really cool things occur. If you want to track your quest, or at least get a general idea of where you need to go, you can click on the quest, and a little arrow comes up that says, it's sort of in this direction, have off. Okay. This means now that you should not get lost anymore.
GPS is good.
I am just going to repeat. Yes, I am just going to repeat. You should not get lost because you go, where is this quest?
But is it going to point to a mountain with a suggestion that you should be going the other side of the mountain and it's an impassable mountain? Or is it going to be intelligent enough to say, based on where you want to get to, this is the path you need to take? And those are two different things.
They are two different things, and they haven't revealed that. However, I will state, considering how they have the maps set up using hex grid styles, which is really cool, might I add. Oh, that was something else they said. They said if you ever want to turn something sci-fi, use hexes. So apparently MMOBuff with our hexaphone, which is our little logo, is sci-fi oriented. So, woo! But anyway, because of the way that they've done that, I don't necessarily think we're looking so much at a world where you can leave the zone at any one of its radiuses.
Okay.
Because there were mountains and there were varying levels of things. And I wonder if it's going to be, quote-unquote, smart, or if it will be sort of, you need to get to it all the way over here. But if that's the case... Well, if you're an explorer, you bloody well should work how it gets there because that's what you're doing. Well, I really think you should avoid the explorer path.
Explorers don't always know where they're going. They're just going, I'm going this way, and keep walking until they find something interesting. I mean, surely that's exploring. You don't know what's
I would
around the
agree.
corner.
Oh, I agree. I just don't think it would work for you. I'm joking. I am teasing. Actually, it would probably be a brilliant path for you because the reality is you would be all over the place. It's like, where are you? I'm in a hole.
I'm exploring. No, I do believe that's a hole in a hole, but that's another story. What else?
Now, one thing I'm curious that they haven't done. If they're implementing that, does that mean that if you and I are in a group together and I click on your name, it'll give me a little arrow giving me an idea of where you're at?
Would seem sensible. If not, we know that they're going to let the add-on community have at it, so given that whatever API they've got turns around and says this information is accessible, then there's no reason why that can't be created.
Very true. I mean, they did, one of the things we talked about, this actually you and I talked about a long, long time ago, Mizpah, on a different podcast, as a matter of fact. We talked about the ability to have quote-unquote enemies on your friends list and things like that. And in their map, when they brought it up, because they were showing all the different quest points and the different path quest areas, and letting you see that in this zone there are 2 explore paths that are quests that you need to complete, or objectives necessarily. When they were mentioning that, there was actually a section on the map called something like enemy ranges, if I remember correctly, or nemesis ranges or something like that. And one of the things that we had talked about was the concern that if you put somebody on that quote-unquote naughty list, if you could stalk them. And I'm wondering if it's sort of, instead of stalking them, they just say they're in this range, like we had talked about before, as to whether it's dead center, that nemesis of yours is in the dead center. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Okay. What else?
Oh, there's a question from Flannan.
Go Flannan.
Wouldn't it be the other way around, Pseudo? You'd want Mizpah to be able to find you, else you would become just as lost as he was. Actually, to be perfectly blunt with you, that wouldn't occur, because generally speaking, if I have found my way into a game area once, I remember it for a very long time. So if someone else is driving me somewhere, yeah, I'm not going to pay as much attention. But it's the same thing in real life. If I've been driven someplace once, if I pay attention, I can get there. If I don't pay attention, I can't. But if I've driven there once myself, I will remember that for a very, very long time. Pardon me.
Okay. What other topics did they reveal? What else is new? What questions have been posed?
Well, they didn't quite get into the PvP side of things, or mentioning too much about PvP, other than the fact that in PvP you will see your enemies' telegraphs, which is very, very lovely.
Okay.
But one of the things that they talked about, a question was asked about being able to, say, create an Exile character and a Dominion character on the same server.
Yes,
now,
probably
they are
bad
discussing this. That's the thing. They're discussing it. They don't see a reason for it to not occur in non-PvP servers, but on PvP servers, they do see a limitational need. WoW applied that same philosophy.
And, I mean, people will buy second accounts to work their way around it, as they did in WoW.
Oh, dear God. No, I do not want to see someone 5-boxing themselves a spell slinger. That would just be really, really weird to me, and I don't even think you could do it.
I'm not referring to multi-boxing. I'm referring to a case of, well, I want to go and speak on the Horde side, so I'll log into my Horde character, and I can't have that on the same server. Well, I'll have a second account. And people were using this sort of thing to pass information, to gain the advantage in PvP. Having that limitation stops it being instantly available to everyone, but how do you stop someone buying a second account? And indeed, should you? And the answer is probably certainly no.
No! If it pays them and keeps the game around, I'm going to be all for people multi-boxing. Woo! Will I be able to afford multi-boxing? I don't even think I have time. I've got the equipment. I just don't have the time.
Okay.
KVM switches. Another thing that they mentioned, which was really, really, really cool, was something called level challenges. Now, this struck me as, I actually had to watch this part 5 times because it mentioned very important in end game, which of course appeals to me because I'm all end game rating. Okay, I'm here. Talk to me.
So what's a level challenge?
Someone had asked the question, you know, does your gear decay? Does it, and we'll get to Shield comment about decays after this, but does your gear evolve with you through level? Like if you find a really cool piece of gear and you level up, does the gear level up with you? I guess in a way kind of like the heirloom items do in WoW. And the answer is no. However, there is something else, and that is the leveling challenges. Some items, some pieces of gear actually have quests attached to them. So it would say something like, you know, the awesome shoulders of awesomeness could be even more awesomer if you go kill 100 squibs. And you go forth and you kill 100 squibs, and all of a sudden that piece of gear goes, hey, you've gotten better at killing squibs, so obviously this piece of gear gets a bonus.
+1 to squib killing.
Or +1 to squid killing, or what have you. But that is interesting to me. Now, they did not state that you would be able to upgrade and upgrade and upgrade and upgrade But if you look at it from an endgame perspective, why not? You know, why not have,
within
you know,
some
in the tier
limitations.
1, I mean, even back in WoW when you started out, you had tier 0.5, tier 7.5, and then you had tier 1. You know, why not allow people to have that extra step up in the stuff? Because it does give people stuff to do.
The question is this. Let's say I get a pair of shoulders and I kill 100 squibs and I gain +1 to squib killing. Can I then go and kill 100 Slarty Bart fasts and also gain +1 to Slarty Bart fast killing?
If that item actually has that attached to it as a level challenge.
Fine.
That's the thing. It's sort of along the lines of, it doesn't necessarily mean killing squibs you're going to get +1 to squib killing. You might get +1 to brutality.
Yep.
Or you might get a stat bonus, or you might get something else, which is kind of interesting to me because, you know, in WoW you've got things like reforging. You know, you've got yourself a piece of gear, but right now you're lacking a little on one particular stat, so you reforge your gear to benefit you so that you're not, say, messing around with diminishing returns or something like that. So I'm going to be curious to see how they plan to implement it and if it's going to do some kind of balance modifications. Now, I know that we've got some questions coming in, specifically from Velnox and some others. So I'm going to pause and actually take a look at those and see what they're about. But what I will state is I found it really cool to learn about shields. And the statement that they used is that some shields decay faster than others. And I have to watch it a few times because the first time I listened to it, I thought, what? Every time you pick up a shield, it's got only so many charges that it can actually charge itself back up to? Or does this mean that decay is sort of the how long it takes before your shield is broken? But they did mention about recharge speeds and things like that with shields, so we shall see.
Okay, so there's a new mechanic there being hinted at.
Shields. It's a gear item, and you can find them all over the place. To quote them, it's just a gear item drop. But that's what it is. When you look at the actual UI, you've got your LAS, and then you've got a green bar and a blue bar. That green bar is your health. Blue bar is your shield.
Okay.
And that seems interesting to me, mainly as a Borderlands 2 player. I wonder if I'm going to get a shield that when it depletes, it explodes out and shoots all kinds of fiery mess and just goes, wah! But we'll see.
So, how many more headline items did we manage to dig out of the stream before we go? Would it be good to just do a run-through of all of the topics and then come back and do full Q&A on any area?
Oh, well, we can kind of go through a whole bunch of them, because I kind of skipped around a lot, so it didn't seem like I was pitter-pattering every single thing that was there.
Just throw me the headlines for someone that hasn't seen it yet.
Okay, so we've got things like when you interrupt telegraphs, you do more damage. Yep. It seems as if for a stealther, or for the stalker, your stealth might be usable in combat. There are different abilities, or different benefits to your abilities depending upon your positioning and whether you're in stealth or not for the stalker, which leads us to believe possibilities are there for other classes as well. We have mentioned a little bit about shields, but not too much. I joked about the NPCs sort of seeming like players.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the one thing that I did miss, which seems kind of silly now because it's actually going to be very beneficial to you again, Mizpah. You don't have to return to turn in all of your quests. It seems like the NPCs have discovered how to use satellite technology to contact you on the field, which means you finish your quest, they contact you, and you're like, oh.
So
you don't have to get lost trying to find your way back.
So not only do we, the players, get voices in our heads, it seems now the characters on screen get voices in their heads as well.
Absolutely.
Good.
Which is kind of cool. And in fact, it was something that they did in COV. Or no, yeah, was it COV? Yeah, it was. It was COV and COH. After you reached a certain point of reputation, you could pick up your cell phone and call whoever your quest giver was and turn your quest in, which was kind of cool.
Okay.
Let's see. They do have, they talked about vacuum loot, which we've seen before, and Stephen was joking about, you could just kind of walk through to each item and decide which one you want to pick up or not. However, I'm kind of the opinion, is there ever a time to not use vacuum loot?
Yes, when you have full bags.
Okay, if you have full bags, you're still going to use vacuum loot and then see what you couldn't pick up so that you could then decide what to get rid of. That's a little more efficient, but To each their own with their play
The,
style.
the dist is saying that paths have many ranks. Can anyone put a
Yes.
number on many?
No. They showed us some of them by scrolling up through them, and you get rewards for reaching the levels. But they
Okay.
said that the rewards that they were showing weren't fixed, so don't bet on them being what you get. Don't be excited about those boots, they were saying. But they did show quite a few, and I'm almost willing to bet that there's 50, just like there's levels.
Good, interesting
I'm
possibility.
almost willing to bet that. Either that or 25, because it would make sense to me to sort of balance it out in some kind of manner that actually equates mathematically to how many levels
Yeah.
there are in game currently. But, we'll see.
Okay. What else do we have?
There was this really awesome scene about one of the things we've talked about in a previous MMO Buff show was about what do you teach the players to start out with. And in fact, it might have been, it was one of our character concept shows, I believe. But how is it and when is it that you introduce concepts to a player? And one of the things that they introduced in this particular case was double jumping to this game.
Okay.
But there is actually a quest in the area that the Draken was in where they had to successfully double jump or they wouldn't successfully free one of their fellow Dominion because they were just high enough that you had to double jump in order to unlock them from their prison cells, which I thought was a really interesting mechanical way to teach somebody about the mechanics of a game without making it jump 3 times, fire at a target 2 times.
Yep.
If you're a huge lore fan, by the way, we are going to be coming back to lore concepts soon. We just have to free some of our guests from the darn chua who keeps trying to kidnap them. They almost succeeded with my electricity. They almost succeeded in keeping Mizpah away today. They seem to be interfering a lot, but as soon as we get them, we will be bringing them back.
They're vermin. That's what vermin are like.
Exactly. But if you watch the video of their live stream at roughly about 17 minutes and 54 seconds, there is an awesome bit of lore, Draken lore, about inside it, where the explorer went and was trying to set up something. He picked up a journal, and they put the journal up, and it scrolled through. You have to be quick on where you pause that screen. But you can read something rather interesting and learn a little bit more about the way Drakens see themselves.
Okay.
Might I add. Oh, just so many things.
Then I'll tell you what I'll suggest, Pseudo, because I think we've just come up on the hour. Why don't we ask people in the channel to take a think about any questions, things from Wildstar in the last week or two they want answered, any questions or thoughts they've got with regards to the stream and the outputs. We will take about a 3-minute break, maybe a 4-minute break, and then we'll come back, go through anything the channel has, and then see if there's anything else we haven't yet touched on.
Oh, absolutely. I will state, though, that I really, 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 really appreciate the fact that Scooter and Frost did this. We are going to see other people on there. Frost will probably never be on it again, so it has been joked. However, there has been kind of a hint that maybe Frost and Pappy will be battling each other out at some point.
Okay.
We'll see. I know which team I'd root for.
Fair enough. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch us over to a pause screen, so get your thinking hats on, please, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll be back for your questions, anything else remaining from the stream, any other Wildstar tidbits that are currently falling out of the sky and hitting us over the head. Back in 3 or 4 minutes.
Toodle pip!
And on that note, it seems like we might just be back. Why, hello! We have juggled the Malamutes. We've obtained a glass of water. And we're back in full flow. Post-break.
Oh boy. Whoops.
So we've asked people for questions, thoughts, comments, anything they want to throw at us during the break. What have we got?
Well, I unfortunately my screen refreshed, so I lost part of the chat, and I'm kind of like angry. So I'm going to have to rely on you for some things. But I do have some stuff from about the dist, and Kami has a question, and Ninichu has a question, and again, Jesper, who is actually has his name spelled backwards in the chat, and who has constantly harassed us throughout the week about taking us out with chuas. It's great. Has recommented again about that whole explorer path bonus of affecting all nearby enemies or all nearby allies. Okay. I will point out though, we have had things said in skills before in other games that may say nearby allies and stuff like that, but really are only affecting people who are in a group with you. So I will be really curious to see if it does impact others, because honestly, if it is the kind of thing that affects everybody around you, regardless of whether you're in a group or not, it could be used for trolling. And I don't think that's fair. It could also screw up PvP in a mad way, especially if you're doing a PvP match. And let's just say that you're not, say, doing your 40-man war plots where you've got your 40 people sitting together on one kind of voice application going, all right, guys, here's what's going to happen. Explorer's going to pop this. Everyone's going to go for this. Let's do this, where you can actually do some kind of strategy. If you jump in and you're with a bunch of random people, it could really screw you up if you didn't realize that boost was coming and you just went to do something and all of a sudden you're running and you're repositioning so that you could take care of whatever telegraph is coming your way. And you find yourself 3/4 of across the map because all of a sudden you have that speed boost, and you're like, whoa!
I'm guessing on that instance you've just got to notice and pick up on it quickly enough. I
would think so.
Wonder, however, if we have a buff that's only affecting people in group, and it might or might not be tied to an area of effect as well, so it could just be, within a telegraph, within so many yards, we're not quite sure. Are we going to get back to having, well, you need to put an explorer in every single group in a raid setting?
See, that to me would be really, really fascinating. I miss the days of not just having to put together the raids, but also having to make certain that we had the right people in the group. Because I remember when Shadow Priests gave one insane buff, and you wanted them with the mages and the warlocks, and you also wanted to put a Shadow Priest in with your healers so that they had that mana regen, because it only affected the people in their group. So, I mean...
It does mean things are strategically interesting for comps, group comps.
Yes.
I guess if we're looking at things like paths, there are, to our knowledge, 4 of them.
Correct.
You've got 40 people in a raid. Well, you can probably expect to be able to get one of everything into every single setup. So that's not so bad. But if you're then looking at saying, well, I want an ability, let's say a Spellslinger ability, I want one of those in every single group, that starts to get a little trickier.
Well, you're going back to one of the discussions that we love to talk about, which is the benefits of making you as an individual class for what you're doing as a player have a utility that is purposeful instead of something that might necessarily be homogenized, like rewriting your buffs because you share buffs with like 5 other classes.
And where they've talked about using the LAS, of course, not only have you got to be potentially the right class, but have the right loadout.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You may find yourself, we'll just pretend that both you and I are playing Spellslinger Explorers. We may find that in a particular raid, I'm the one who's going to bring the Explorer path because you need one other Spellslinger ability that's not going to let you really put a path into your LAS. And that's something that you and I will have to debate out with everybody else around and go, is this mechanically correct? Are we doing the right thing here? Are we testing this well? Are we, is this going to work? Or do we actually need to spread it out so that we have, a settler, or not a settler, sorry, but a explorer in every single group? And if that happens to be the case, do they need to sacrifice a particular ability on their LAS in order to ensure that it's there? And if so, what really is that going to impact with the raid? I'll be really curious to see how that all works together.
Okay. Let's dive back into the chat then, see what we've got.
Nano batteries! Yay!
What is Ishmael? I have
What
no
is
context for
Ishmael?
that statement. It's a name. It begins with I.
Well, oh, come on. It's the start of one of the greatest books out there. My name is Ishmael.
Yes, but I mean in the context of doubtless this stream. Well, not this one, the Wildstar one we're talking about.
I don't remember them mentioning Ishmael, so if they did, I missed it. Oh no.
Ishmael,
To be
we're
fair,
not worried about Ishmael.
To be fair, I was watching a stream after being up for 36 hours, working on stuff for the site. So I'm a little brain dead this week.
Okay, let's look at else what I can pick out here.
Kami says, I was just wondering if I'm the only one to find that the killing of mobs going very, very slow. I've seen enough videos that that is the thing that always strikes me. Or is it just me being used to other games too much? Okay, this is something that I kind of thought about when I saw it, but I kind of recognize there's a balance that needs to be done. Killing mobs may not be the best way to gain XP. Completing your quests might be the best way to gain XP. We don't know how they've balanced out XP per kill versus XP per quest versus anything else.
Yeah.
Now, in a lot of games, some things die really easy, but we're talking about a game where the big focus in combat is the fact that it is action-based. You're not just standing there casting Frostbolt repeatedly or Frostfire until the thing dies. You're not just standing there shooting your arrow until the thing dies. You are literally having to move, interrupt their telegraphs, balance things out. And I am kind of wondering if the killing of mobs or the speed of killing of mobs is more a matter of really being able to do more than just one thing repeatedly. To teach you a lot.
I'd also throw in, if I go back to Vanilla WoW, mob kill speed versus, say, WoW today, we've seen a change over time. I remember the elites used to take time to kill. So, very difficult to comment based on the videos that are out there to say, is stuff too fast, too slow? It could well be that popular perception is things should be fast, because that's what a lot of people are used to. And I think things should be varied based on the mobs. You know, if something's got a ton of armor, theoretically speaking, it should take longer to kill.
I think it depends on if you have an ability that eats armors or not.
Exactly.
You know, I think it's all situation. We also know that this is their last build that they've shown. They've made a lot of modifications. This is why they've been so quiet, why we haven't had all these major drops occurring until just now, because the devs have not just been listening, but they've been busy. And my heart breaks for them because they've had to go quiet. And a lot of devs, and I don't know if anyone's noticed, have not been as active socially as they used to be. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we've got to get this done. We've got to get this done. And because of the fact that they've specifically put onto their website Spring 2014.
Okay.
You know,
Ishmael is being commented on in the chat. Apparently it was talked about on Wildstar Wednesday. I have all of this week to catch up on once we get past the show, and an awesome picture was linked.
Well, I'm kind of curious as to where the heck that was, because I don't see Ishmael on the Wildstar Wednesday or the beta is coming page. So I probably have missed something. Okay. I'm not surprised. There is so much going on, and it is only going to ramp up speed. It's going to get to the point where we in Cosmotronic are going to be sitting there going, okay, so this occurred, and we're going to end up talking a little bit like auctioneers, and we're going to be so fast that we may have to have something like, you know, once we're done in post-processing, actually showing it down a little bit, so you can actually get everything that we want to say in, because there is a lot that's going to start dropping.
And apparently the image was squirreled away inside a comma.
Oh, interesting. I love the Wildstar community. They don't take anything for granted.
So how many people now feel an urge to go and check every single pixel on all of the recent postings?
Well, you do realize that in one of their latest dev speaks, in order to see what everything that was there within their disclaimers, you actually had to change the contrast on your screen, and I believe you were called a cheater or something like that. Let's see.
Any more for anyone?
On the Reddits. Stoutpine says there's a thread on the WildStar Reddit speculating on how behavior will be handled, especially with cross-realm Dungeon Finder, which increases anonymity. What would you like to see in regards to policing player behavior?
Vats of
Now,
boiling oil, flaying, hanging, drawing, and quartering, the rack. These all seem appropriate for certain player misdemeanors.
I think there are two things that I personally would like to see. One, I would like to see people not afraid to report if something is going on, not just to shrug their shoulders and go, this occurs in games. If something is extreme enough, I do believe we have too many people who are quiet about it, and I'd like to see them actually be willing to press that report somebody button kind of a thing. It's something that I've seen in previous games where people are like, oh, you just get your trolls. Trolls are trolls. Everyone gets them, yada yada. But no one tries to do anything about it. And I'd like to see, one, the players themselves feel they can say something about it. But what I'd also like to see, and it will never happen, is people not bloody abuse it.
That's very true.
know?
But the most important thing of all is that the community...
I just stubbed my toe.
Please.
Sorry.
While Pseudo's busy stubbing her toe, I'll make reference to the fact that the most important thing is really that the community polices itself. If
I agree.
people whose behaviour is unacceptable are self-policed with simply, people don't include them, people don't group with them, people avoid them if someone with a bad rep turns up, that's got to be the most effective form of policing possible.
Yeah, and I actually think I know exactly what you're referring to now with Ishmael, by the way, people. Because there was mention that one of the things that's going to be dropped is a new WildStar movie. And there was a very brief image of someone who looked creepy. So, yeah.
So, is there any other major headline before we jump off the stream topic?
Let's see.
So the things that I've taken away from what we've said so far, we've seen a bit more information on combat with regards to at least a couple of people. We've seen a little bit more depth on paths and a path ability. We've got some speculation going on with regards to our abilities going to be simply radius or radius and group. What else? There was a couple more.
Yeah, we had a question from our old Git asking if we've talked about the armor types for different classes, as was mentioned on the stream. And yeah, we did kind of drill into that awesome conversation where there was something dropped about an engineer. But yeah, we did comment on that one. And
I'm just going to pull up Silico's comment from the channel as well.
You beat me to it, so...
Policing is good as long as we as a community do not become elitist. Completely and totally agree. And I would kind of include the react to people being elitist as part of the policing. I mean, it's all well and good to say this is how I choose to spend my time playing the game. It's not so all well and good to create a totally inclusive club that no one else gets to join based on some arbitrary set of social values that probably aren't very real anyway. But I shall get off my fictitious soapbox for that one for a moment.
Well, part of the problem tends to come from the fact that one person's idea of elitism is different, just like one person's idea of hardcore versus casual is different. And, in order to have a really rich, vibrant community, we have to be willing to support each other and be tolerant. And I think that is one of the difficulties, is how do you, as a player, especially someone who may have just that sort of apathetic, you trolls happen kind of philosophy, how do you balance tolerance versus, say, reporting somebody? Just because you have a difference in an opinion on how something should be. I mean, we start bringing into ethics into this, and anyone who has studied ethics will tell you there's no such thing as one form of ethics.
No, there isn't. But the Hive leader brings up something fantastic. The ultimate punishment.
Hi, Hive!
We take away someone's double jump for certain misdemeanors.
That would just be brilliant. Idea. Oh, that would be brilliant. I think that what we should do probably for people who are chuas is we should probably take away their ability to create mad engines.
I think counselling is probably the thing that's needed for anyone that plays a chua.
Aw. Although I will state for Gazzy, in case he hasn't noticed or seen it, but in our show on Monday when we had Trevor from GOG, I did do a brief impersonation of you, but I came up with an awesome nickname for you, Gazzy Chua. So, yeah. But anyway.
Fine. So, is there anything else? I think our clock has run its course.
No offense, Flatten. Believe me, I will probably have a Chua somewhere. As much as I bemoan the Chuas because they keep messing with the Cosmotronic show, I do find them absolutely viciously adorable. So I'll probably have myself a little Chua that runs around causing mischief and mayhem.
So, let's just brief change of topic. Somebody mentioned the left-handed Naga comp we have running.
Yes. Oh, let me go get that.
Could we link? Could we talk about that briefly?
We can talk about it.
I do believe it finishes. Does it finish on Monday?
La 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 la. I don't know what day it is, so I don't even know how to answer that question. La la la.
This is now the West End stage show version of the Cosmotronic show.
We bring to you a lovely treat of razors for the left-handed player and other things that rhyme together in some way involving alcohol. Sorry.
And that's our highlight of the week that will be going up on the show reel.
No!
Quick check. The timestamp is currently 21:26 ICO for highlight purposes.
That's not fair. Okay, so we have our razor competition. I'm going to link it into the channel, Cosmotronic the musical. Here we go. That is a competition. In this particular case, we are giving away the left-handed Naga, which to me is absolutely incredible because I don't feel the left-handers get enough love. I think there's too much general consensus that the righties seem to be the players, and that's not true. So, if you know a left-handed player, get them to enter because this is going to be a good thing. They get themselves a game and mouse for lefties.
And indeed, we're not going to stop right-handed players from entering. They're just probably going to want to find someone else to give the left-handed Naga to.
Ha!
And with that, I think we're pretty much done, unless you want to throw something new into the mix. I have to say that it has been a very long day from a Mizpah's perspective. I have been in too many countries today, but I am back. And Monday, of course, the travelling Mizpah show continues, because I'm off to the States. But, so people know, not only am I going to a certain well-known convention, I am also going to be paying a visit to our friends in Orange County. And we may have a little bit of content to come out of that you might find interesting.
We have received some questions, might I add.
Oh, shall we ask for some more? So I am, of course, heading into BlizzCon. I'm going to be in LA. Post BlizzCon, I'm going to be taking a trip to go and see Carbine. Have a walk around, have a chat with a few people, and see if we can rustle up some content. So, if you have questions you'd like me to ask, pass them over. Voice at MMOBuff.TV.
Yes, and I want to give a serious thank you to everyone who showed up for Wednesday's Top Draw show, where we had Jen, Martin, and GM from Faria. That has been put up onto the YouTube. You can go learn about Faria. You can also learn a little bit about the T-Rex chicken plushies and taking over the world, which was hysterical. But yes, thank you everyone for being around for that. Monday's show about Cosmotronic was longer than normal. Not Cosmotronic, but about copyright was longer than normal, so it took us a little bit longer to get it post-processed and updated and edited. That is also now up. Yeah, so do make certain that you go to YouTube to watch things, leave comments, subscribe to us, etc. Like us on Facebook. Make sure that you are following us here on Twitch and that you're following us on Twitter, because we've got a whole bunch of crazy things coming. Some things I'm not allowed to reveal, so I actually have to keep my mouth shut and say redacted. Wow, go figure. But I will see you guys on Monday. I have my stream with running around in World of Warcraft tomorrow. And I've got some crazy things coming that way too. Yeah, we've got a whole bunch of stuff happening. In fact, there is the potential that we're going to have a couple new people who will be writing for our site very soon.
Indeed. So keep your eyes open.
Yes.
And on that note, it's going to be goodbye from Pseudo.
Toodle pip.
And a goodbye from a tired Mizpah. Signing off. See you soon. Yeah, very much so. Bye-bye.
I am so tired.